the Aeolian sound, or breathy tone, or in French it's called the souffle. It's the type of sound that the flute is very good at making. In fact, a beginner flutist, when he or she attempts to make a sound on the flute at first, they are likely going to play a very unfocused and airy tone, and that's the breathy tone that I'm referring to, basically. So if we deliberately try to make that breathy tone, it will sound something like this. It works equally well on other flutes as well, like for example on the alto flute. Takes a lot of air to make this type of sound. Actually, I feel a little bit lightheaded just doing this. Works also very well on the piccolo. The limitation of this particular technique is that because it takes so much air just to make the sound to come out, we cannot simply sustain the notes of a breathy sound for very long. So perhaps limit your writing of a breathy sound for less than 5 or 6 sustained seconds. Maybe it's more effective to write breathy tones as separately articulated notes, like this. This way the flute player can take some quick breaths in between notes, and then we can sustain this type of articulated breathy tones for a much longer period. There's another limitation to this technique. In fact, this technique works the best for the flute in its lowest register. When we go beyond the middle E flat, it doesn't really work very well, because then the breathy sound started to drop back down to its fundamental pitch. So it would end up sounding a little bit like this if I go beyond the middle octave E flat, and I'm going to start from the low C. So you can tell after the middle E flat, it drops back down to its low octave. So it won't really work very well if you write a breathy sound for a note beyond the middle octave E flat. As for notation, there are various ways to notate this. The most common way is for a composer to use a triangular note head that is white. The note head is white, like what Sarajevo usually would do in her music. Now there are various degrees of breathiness that you can ask the flute player to do, and it would give a slightly different color in the sound. So for example, in this breath and sound mixed together example, and as you can tell, I can actually go way beyond the middle octave E flat, unlike in the purely breathy tone that I was just demonstrating before. So the limitation of that technique is gone in this breath and sound mixed together technique. Now the notation for this would be slightly different than the purely breathy tone. Usually the composer would use a regular note head with a triangle on the stem, a white triangle on the stem of the note. And that's usually how people like Sariahu would notate for a half breath, half focused tone.